Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
It's time for you to leave the United States. That's what a letter from the Department of Homeland Security reads to those legally seeking asylum in the U.S. Thanks for joining us. I'm John Carroll in for Maya Trabulsi. The Trump administration has eliminated deportation protections for migrants who entered the United States through the CBP app, CBP rather. KPBS reporter Gustavo Solis spoke to an immigration lawyer representing multiple migrants impacted by the decision.
Like that first line is telling us time for you to leave.
The news came in the form of an email.
Notice of termination of parole. It is time for you to leave the United States.
That is San Diego immigration lawyer David Landry, reading the email recently sent out to thousands of asylum seekers who entered the country through the CBP One app. The mobile app was a Biden administration reform to the asylum system. President Trump killed the program on his first day in office and is now telling everyone who used the app to go back to their home country.
If you do not depart the United States immediately, you will be subject to potential law enforcement actions that will result in your removal from the United States.
Landry has heard from several people who received that email. All of them are really scared.
She was terrified. Came to us immediately and said, oh my God, am I having to leave? Do I have to pack up my kids? Do I have to do all of these things?
But many of the people receiving that email might still have legal protections from deportation, and they don't have to leave.
My client has applied for asylum. Once a person has applied for asylum, they're not required to leave the United States until after that asylum application has been, in essence, denied, and they've been given an opportunity to pursue appeal, to have it reviewed to see if that denial was correct.
Landry is worried about people who don't have a lawyer, people who may have a legal right to stay in the country, but will self-deport out of fear. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
More than 100 student visas have been revoked in California, including the visas of 35 international students at UC San Diego. Our media partner, KGTV, spoke to one student who says he's nervous about what's to come for his peers.
Frightened. They think that any sort of actions may result in further deportation notices or revocations of their visas. And that's why a lot of them are trying to take any precautions required to make sure that they're safe.
In a statement, the university says they learned about these terminations by monitoring the Student and Exchange Visitor Information System. They also say the federal government has not explained the reasons for the revocations. Immigration attorney Saman Nasseri says there are things people can do if their visa is revoked.
The student was arrested, but no charges were actually filed against that student. That student should go back to court, see if they can turn that into a detention or get the arrest sealed.
As of Thursday, 4 students at San Diego State University have had their visas revoked.
We've had some showers around, and tonight, as we get the marine layer still persisting for us, we fall into the mid-50s, which is pretty typical, and we're going to stay quiet into the weekend. Actually, dry up, brighten up a little bit. I'll talk more in the full forecast to come.
Another round of protests are expected to take place this weekend across the country, including here in San Diego. The Stop the Cuts rallies will be held from Oceanside to Encinitas, Escondido, and El Cajon throughout the day. Many members of Congress are in their home districts this month, and organizers want to get their attention. They are demanding a halt in cuts to Medicaid, SNAP benefits, and other supportive programs. A separate protest is planned for Saturday at 10 a.m. at Waterfront Park. They will march to the Gaslamp Quarter. That is the Not on Our Watch protest organized by Activist SD. San Diego has a long history of political activism. In just a few minutes, we look back at that history and share ways to get involved today. A major shakeup is happening in the leadership of Imperial County. This month, the Board of Supervisors fired their top administrator, Chief Executive Officer Miguel Figueroa. They said it was related to an ongoing investigation, but have declined to share any further details. At a board meeting earlier this week, Figueroa defended his record.
For the dedication and hard work you do for each of your districts in this community. And all we did as a team under my leadership were to be good stewards and follow what's right and do what's best for our community. So with that, I just want to say thank you.
A county spokesperson said they couldn't comment on personnel matters or ongoing investigations. San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria is set to present his budget proposal to the City Council on Monday. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says it's a grim picture that could get worse.
Libraries are one of the hardest hit city services in the mayor's budget. All of them would be closed on Sundays and Mondays. The proposed budget aims to fix a structural deficit that the city has been putting off for years. In addition to the library cuts, the mayor proposes consolidating some police and fire operations, reducing rec center hours, and waiving contributions to the city's reserves. Those cuts could have been much worse if the city weren't pursuing new revenue, like raising parking meter rates and charging for trash pickup at single-family homes. A revised budget proposal is due out next month, which will include updated economic forecasts. Mayoral spokesperson Rachel Lang told KPBS, quote, "This year, we might also have more significant swings because of the impact of tariffs and other policies at the national level, like federal employee travel budgets. Because of this, we want to stress the preliminary nature of this first draft and are calling it a starting point." Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
The final votes have been tallied in the first supervisorial district special primary election. Just under 18% of registered voters submitted their ballot. Chula Vista Mayor John McCann led the way with more than 43% of the vote, followed by Imperial Beach Mayor Paloma Aguirre, who won over 32% of the vote. The two will head to a runoff election on July 1st. You can find more information about the election on our website. Just go to kpbs.org/voterhub. If you have likely gotten a message about an overdue toll payment or an Easy Pass final reminder, you might be the victim of a new scam. Lee Waldman reports on one of the latest attempts to take your personal information.
It's deceptively simple, the scam, and it's very easy to fall for.
You've likely gotten a few of these messages to your phone recently, alerting you to unpaid tolls or an outstanding Easy Pass balance. These are called smishing scams.
They're looking to steal your personal information, followed by your credit card information, and finally, they will often have a multi-factor authentication bypass.
Ford Merrill, Director of Research and Innovation at Security Alliance, has been following these types of scams since 2023. To protect yourself, he says, pay attention to the sender.
Looking at the sender address, it will often be like a strange number that you don't recognize, or it will be an email address that you don't recognize, even though it's a text message.
Frank Orr, the executive director of the New York State Thruway Authority, agrees, saying legitimate agencies like his will never try to collect payment over text or email.
They will never ask you to pay a bill in this way. You either have an account or you have a formal process to pay your tolls by mail.
His agency is working with New York Governor Kathy Hochul's office to warn the public about these scams, as well as what to do if you fall victim. If you do get one of these messages, Orr says simply delete it.
Red flags should go off right away as to whether this is legitimate and real, and they should not engage if it's somebody by phone. If it's an email or text, they should delete it right away.
In New York, I'm Lee Waldman.
I'm William Brangham. Tonight on the NewsHour, we speak with the lawyer for the man mistakenly deported to a mega prison in El Salvador. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
As of this week, State Farm says it has paid more than $3 billion to customers who've had their homes damaged or destroyed in the Eaton fire. But some customers say they not only have they not gotten the help they needed, their rates are going through the roof. Jeff Nguyen reports.
Our pleas, questions, and assertions just go into the black hole.
Wendy Davis and a group of Eaton Fire survivors blasted State Farm 100 days after the Southern California fires destroyed or damaged tens of thousands of homes.
Delayed, stonewalled, and denied us the help that we're entitled to.
The insurance company recently asked for a 17% emergency rate increase, arguing it needs to boost capital to avoid an increasingly dire financial situation following the disasters.
I understand that the cost of insurance is going to have to go up in some cases. I want for those increases to be predictable and to not be sudden.
State Senator Sasha Renee Perez represents Altadena. She says she's heard a mixed bag when it comes to how responsive insurance companies have been. Last week, State Farm presented its case for a rate increase in front of a judge in Oakland after Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara gave the company provisional approval for its emergency request.
We're waiting for the judge to give us their recommendation. That's part of the process. We need to get to the bottom of what's really happening with State Farm and their financial situation.
Many policyholders asked why the proceedings did not include public comment and why Lara didn't attend them.
But I felt it was important to have a private, separate hearing where I cannot be involved because I'm going to be the one that finally makes that decision.
In the meantime, Lara and Perez say there's a need to create statewide smoke damage standards for insurance coverage because they don't exist.
And I really wonder and worry about the future of my community if we continue to see prices shoot through the roof.
The disaster began with the Eaton fire. But for us, the real trauma began when we filed a smoke damage claim.
In a written statement, State Farm says we actively work with each of our customers to understand the facts of their loss, identify the damages and applicable coverage, and ultimately resolve their claim.
A lawsuit against the operators of the South Bay International Wastewater Treatment Plant is gaining traction among South Bay residents. France Law Group filed the lawsuit against Veolia Water in November, accusing the group of negligence, among other complaints, for exposing residents to contamination. One attorney involved told our media partner KGTV nearly 1,000 people have filed claims, with some saying they've gotten sick and others their homes devalued.
The main claim permeates the whole case as a conscious disregard for the safety of the entire community.
It wasn't our fault. It was someone else's who caused this. And whoever caused this should pay for what they did.
In a statement responding to the lawsuit, Veolia Water called the accusations baseless. It also blamed the crisis on a critical lack of government funding and resources on both sides of the border. Growing cash crops in the U.S. means using fertilizer and accepting the environmental damage that sometimes comes with them. Now, some research at San Diego's Salk Institute shows a way to help plants to consume nutrients already in the soil. KPBS SciTech reporter Thomas Fudge has more.
Fertilizer on farm fields doesn't all stay there. A lot of it is washed into streams, bays, and the ocean, causing algae growth, blocking sunlight, and stealing oxygen from aquatic creatures. Can science provide a solution? Here at the Salk Institute, researchers believe they have found a way to make farm plants less dependent on fertilizer. The key is an activating molecule found in plants that creates a symbiotic bond between plants and a soil fungus. The fungus becomes embedded in the plant's roots and delivers soil nutrients to the plant in exchange for carbon that the plant pulls out of the air. Plant biologist Lena Mueller says they have learned to synthesize the molecule and give plants more of it by adding it to the soil where it's absorbed into the roots.
And we found that this molecule, when we apply it, for example, it amplifies the symbiosis. So roots become a lot more colonized by the fungus when that molecule is added.
Plant roots derive nutrients from the soil all by themselves, of course, but the fungus, called arbuscular mycorrhizal, does it a lot better. Mueller and her Salk research team have done their experiments with a legume that's similar to a soybean plant.
This is our little legume that we work with. It looks very sad here because we don't give it a lot of nutrients because we want it to interact with a fungus.
Once that interaction takes place, the plant becomes a lot less sad. They found their leaves contain 200% more of the nutrient phosphate. Mueller says 80% of plants can perform this interaction with fungus that boosts plant nutrition. These include corn, wheat, rice, and soybeans. The question is whether the engine that drives that interaction, the molecule she identified, could be increased in those varieties of crops.
We could test if our already existing varieties that have been bred for yield, if they would be susceptible, or if that molecule would work on them. And that would be really exciting.
Could fungal symbiosis actually eliminate the need for fertilizer? Mueller says probably not, but just reducing fertilizer use would be a strong step in the right direction. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
After seeing KPBS stories about protests and rallies, many viewers, listeners, and readers are writing to us asking how they can get involved. From the corner of 5th and E in downtown San Diego, KPBS video journalist Matthew Bowler has this story about activism in San Diego and how you can get involved in the causes you believe in.
Activism has a long history in our region, dating back to the beginning of the 20th century. According to the San Diego History Center, the corner of 5th and E in downtown San Diego was known as Soapbox Corner. And from atop soapboxes, groups like the International Workers of the World or the Wobblies would hold speeches and debate with other activists. But in January of 1912, city authorities shut it down and banned speeches for 6 blocks, with 5th and E at its center. Today, this corner is full of bars and restaurants, and life here is very different. And while history may not exactly repeat itself, it sure seems to rhyme.
There's a long history of protest. Here in San Diego, I'm Frances Yasmin Motiwala. I'm a board member and lead organizer at Activist San Diego.
Motiwala says Activist San Diego has been around since 1999. They started a small, scrappy group and have grown into a 501c3 nonprofit. Motiwala describes the group as the connective tissue of San Diego's social justice organizations.
It's a moment where I think people are freaking out, and rightfully so, because in America we've never seen this kind of radical shift from democracy to dictatorship. We are being flooded with a ton of people who want to get involved, which is very exciting.
Every activist has their own origin story. Motiwala credits education for opening her eyes.
It was in actually high school government and democracy accelerated, thanks to Mrs. Dinas, who taught us like what the different political parties were.
Political science professor Rick Epps says his family is what got him interested in politics.
My mother was very strong, involved, engaged politically. And my grandparents lived through the Tulsa riots. And so I've always had an awareness, and I think from that point it started.
Epps says no matter the catalyst, the causality is the same.
There's an inequity in the system that requires a response, and you're trying to take action in some way, shape, or form.
But what does activism look like? First, Epps says you need to pick a cause.
In order to make change, you have to decide what it is you want to attack, right?
How you choose to express your activism can take many forms. It can be subtle.
Whether it's wearing a pin or a sweatshirt that says, feminist, anti-racist, regenerative economy, or whether it's wearing a shirt that says demilitarize, and has your favorite organization's logos on it.
It can also be overt and targeted.
For example, the civil rights movement, where in Montgomery, Alabama, the blacks didn't ride the buses. And so it literally almost put the busing industry out of business.
And according to research, it doesn't require all of us to be involved. Professor Erica Chenoweth from Harvard Kennedy School of Public Policy says their research shows that for nonviolent movements to be successful, just 3.5% of us need to be activists. 3.5% may not seem like a lot, but in the city of San Diego, that's nearly 50,000 people. Chenoweth's research also goes on to show that nonviolent civil actions are far more successful than violent ones.
The question is, can they endure, survive the long term?
For Epps, persistence is the key to a movement's success, and life gets in the way.
You're caught up in the rat race of survival, so you're not really paying attention to the things that are causing you to struggle.
But Motiwala and Epps say do what you can, because for them, activism is a spectrum.
There's a lot of ways people can, just as a one human on their own, can actually become literally grabbing a megaphone and grabbing a sign, you can actually start your own protest wherever you're at.
If you choose to join a cause through activistsandiego.org or speak up about civil rights at Soapbox Corner or even just change your profile picture, our experts say take the action that you can because everyone can make a difference in their own way. Matthew Bowler, KPBS News.
We've had a damp, cool pattern over the past couple of days, but we're going to ease out into it just in time for the weekend, which means we get a chance to show off Southern California weather. We turn a little bit warmer for the weekend and lead into a typical pattern of night and morning clouds. Also quiet and comfy as we work our way into next week. So really no big concerns as far as our weather pattern in the upcoming days. But you'll note tonight still a lot of those clouds out there in several different spots in the city. 54 for the low as we work towards Ramona, 41 for your low, 38 in Mount Laguna. Still some clouds towards the mountains, but you can see the storm system that's been bringing the winds and the chilly air. That's departing off towards the east. It's still bringing some snow to places like Denver as we start off the weekend, but we will not be contending with any of that. In fact, for our area, 69 the high in the city tomorrow. Some sunshine breaking out, 74 in Escondido. We go to 83 in Borrego Springs. It's turning brighter. It's fairly mild. Again, nothing like the heat that we saw last weekend, so we're looking good. Sunshine and 70s to start off your weekend at the coast. We do stay in the mid-60s Sunday, maybe just a subtle cooling pattern, but the 60s then hold on as we go into early next week. It's really a pretty quiet trend for us. We do get some more of that marine layer that'll make a difference towards the coast. Meanwhile, the mid-70s hold on for our inland communities, and it looks nice as we go even into Tuesday with sunshine out there. 70 degrees will keep things fairly pleasant. There's a subtle cooling pattern into the middle of next week, but you hardly notice it in the mountain communities where we hold on to the 50s throughout. Sunshine, clouds, really quiet. We're not going to be talking about any more showers. Things dry out for us right through next Wednesday. Getting into the desert communities, no triple digits out there, and if we see a 90, it's just that lower 90s. A lot of time spent in the 80s for the upcoming days here with sunshine. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
This weekend, KPBS cinema junkie Beth Accomando says you have two great options from opposite ends of the cinematic spectrum: Ryan Coogler's big-budget Sinners or the indie neo-noir Gazer.
Sinners marks Ryan Coogler's first official stab at horror.
There are legends of people with the gift of making music so true. It can conjure spirits from the past and the future. This gift can bring fame and fortune.
Will somebody take me in your eyes?
But it also can pierce the veil between life and death.
But while it presents itself as a horror and vampire tale, it's also so much more. With Sinners, Coogler delivers not just a big studio horror action film, but also a personal story about music, black culture, and his own Southern roots. Michael B. Jordan plays the Stackhouse twins, who return to Mississippi to open a juke joint. But what awaits them as night falls proves to be far more terrifying and evil than fighting in a war or dealing with Chicago mobs.
Hey there. We heard tale of a party.
You did?
You wouldn't mind us coming in now, would you? We hungry as dogs.
The evil arrives in the form of Remick, a vampiric demon summoned from the other side by Sammy's soul-piercing blues. Coogler layers the film with themes of cultural appropriation and colonization without losing a single heart-pounding second of tense horror action. The first viewing engaged me on a visceral level of classic horror survival. But Coogler has so much more going on that I can't wait to see it again, to catch something I thought I heard or to investigate something I was unfamiliar with. Coogler has mastered a filmmaking style that draws you in as pure entertainment and then resonates on deeper thematic levels. Not every piece of Sinners falls perfectly into place, but Coogler is such a vivid and compelling storyteller that I'm willing to take the ride and thrill at every turn. On the other end of the financial spectrum is Gazer, an $80,000 indie film that invites us into the insular world of Frankie.
Focus.
Frankie has a rare condition known as mental chronometry, which affects her ability to perceive time and causes sudden blackouts. To cope, she creates audio cassettes to help her maintain focus.
If you feel yourself zoning out, rewind tape.
Frankie is the gazer of the film's title, someone who watches but prefers to be unseen. That all changes when she takes a job from a mysterious woman.
Why am I here?
Body was found floating in the Meadowlands.
Focus.
Gazer delivers all the trappings of a classic neo-noir, a murder, a mysterious woman, a possible conspiracy, and most beguilingly, an unreliable narrator. We're sucked into a spiraling story, steeped in paranoia, and uncertain if we can trust Frankie's version of events. Despite a small budget and a production timeline spanning 2 years, the film serves up a grungy and entirely engrossing neo-noir that takes deliciously unexpected turns. Like its protagonist, though, Gazer's slight stature might mean it goes unseen, but I hope good word of mouth pulls it out of the shadows. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. I'm John Carroll. Have an excellent evening and a wonderful weekend.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.